Hello, I'm Mark Price. I'd like to talk to you today about multiplying miracles. About a century ago or so, in South Africa, at the time of their gold rush, there was a man who decided he wanted to find fortune and find gold. So he sold everything he had and he got himself an acre of land. He got a mule, he got pots, pans, whatever he needed to go out and discover his fortune, to pan for and find gold. Well, month after month, year after year went by and he found nothing. And finally he got to the end of his life and he was tired and worn out and found no gold. After he died, somebody else purchased that acre of land, and a few years after that, they discovered that this acre of land did not have gold, but instead it had diamonds. And it turned out to be the richest acre of diamonds in all of South Africa, at least for that time. See, sometimes in our life we're focusing on things the way we want it to be, and we are closed-minded, closed-hearted to the acre of diamonds, which is actually right beneath the surface. The gospel today is from John chapter 6, verses 1 through 15. Jesus went across the Sea of Galilee. A large crowd followed him. Because they saw the signs he was performing on the sick, Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. The Jewish feast of Passover was near. When Jesus raised his eyes and saw that a large crowd was coming to him, he said to Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" He said this to test him, because he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 200 days' wages worth of food would not be enough for each of them to have even a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves of bread and 2 fish. But what good are these for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people recline." Now there was a great deal of grass in that place, so the men reclined, about 5,000 in number. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, distributed them to those who were reclining, and also as much of the fish as they wanted. When they had their fill, he said to his disciples, "Gather the fragments left over, so that nothing will be wasted." So they collected them and filled 12 wicker baskets with the fragments from the 5 barley loaves that had been more than they could eat. When people saw the sign he had done, they said, "This is truly the prophet, the one who is to come into the world." Since Jesus knew they were going to come and carry him off to make him a king, he withdrew again to the mountain alone. The Gospel of the Lord. So what's happening? Jesus is being followed by many people. He's trying to rest with his disciples. In some of the gospel accounts, it says that this is right after Jesus learns that his cousin John the Baptist had been killed by King Herod. So he's trying to rest, he's trying to mourn, and yet the crowds of people keep following him. And Jesus does what Jesus always does. He stops what he's doing to meet the needs of others. So he starts teaching them and healing their sick, and this is going on for hours. Well, after many hours, his disciples say to Jesus, "This is too long. These people, they've been here hours and hours. It's late. They must go home and they must eat." And Jesus said, "Well, why don't we feed them?" And the apostles say, "Because we don't have anything to feed. We have nothing. It would be well over 200 days' wages to have enough to give them just a little food, and we don't have that." And Jesus said, "There's no food here?" And one of the disciples, Andrew, the brother of Simon, said, "Well, there's a young boy who has a basket of fish and bread." So they brought it over to Jesus. There are 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus blesses it, and he says to his disciples, "Tell everyone just to relax on the grass and pass the basket of fish and bread up and down the rows." And when they had done passing it and everyone had had their fill, the scripture tells us that with the scraps alone from the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, they filled 12 wicker baskets. Well, that's a miracle, yes? Let me tell you, this story is in the Gospels 6 times. It's in all 4 Gospels, and a couple of them it's in there 2 different times. That means it's important. When you find a story multiple times in the Scriptures, it means it's a very important story. In Matthew's account of this, he says there were 5,000 men, not counting women and children. See, and like in our world today, it was back then, there are many more women and children going to church and following and learning the thing than there are men. Some say that there were possibly 20,000 there that day that he fed with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. A miracle. I want to suggest something to you. Maybe the miracle was more than just supernatural. Maybe it was also natural. Maybe those people sitting there listening to Jesus all day had their hearts and minds open to the message of Jesus, the message that we can only serve God by serving each other. So maybe, just maybe, when they passed that basket of the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, people took what they wanted from the basket, and in an effort to fulfill the teachings of Jesus and give back, maybe they took from their own knapsacks food and morsels and added it to the basket. So at the end, everybody had more than enough. They filled basket fills of the scraps when it was all over. So maybe the miracle was multiplied by the people who understood what Jesus had taught them. So if we want to have multiple miracles and expand the miracles in our own lives, even during this pandemic when people are locked in, looking for ways that we can use our gifts, our talents to help others, then we can maybe truly embrace the message of Christ, the message that says the only way we can serve God is by serving each other, and maybe, just maybe, we'll stop looking for that acre of gold and allow our minds and hearts to be open to that acre of diamonds, which Jesus has there waiting for us. This is Mark Price. Thanks for listening.